So I'd just like to start by thanking everyone for being here, because it's nice to be with people who like what they're doing. And I think everybody here has sacrificed maybe another alternative holiday with husbands or partners to be here and to do something, and I think that's a very a decent thing. I'd also like to thank in particular Beata Brzezinska, who invited me here, and as you'll see a bit later, she was quite important in this book. So I'll just tell you a little bit, because I recognize quite a few faces, but if you haven't met me before, my name's Terence Clark-Ward. I'm from London, but I've been living in Poland for nearly 16 years, and I run a language school, and I try to do as many things as I can connected to English. So in addition to running a school and teaching English, I've written a couple of books. I work for Polish radio, I work for Radio Ram, which is a popular local station in Wrocław, and I also write song lyrics for Robert Chojnacki, who is a saxophonist, and he used to play with piasek, but not in English.
Which song is yours? Can you give us some names?
Well, in October there'll be an album.
An album?
An album this October. One of the CDs is in English, and I've written all the words for that, and the other one is in Polish. So it's a bit of fun, and maybe a bit of zajec, but we'll see. Anyway, to tell you about this book, Żegnajcie Błędy. Well, I thought it was a good idea to write a book called Żegnajcie Błędy angielskie dla Polaków, because in Poland everybody wants to be the best, don't they? Yeah? And it starts when you're at school. Yeah? Mój syn jest najlepszy. And then when you get older, you are najmądrzejszy. It's always 999. You have to speak perfectly. Everybody's focused on this perfection. But let's face it, everybody makes mistakes, right? The big problem is that when you make a mistake, there is this immediate people are a bit, I think, too worried about making mistakes. You have to make mistakes. I tell my son, who's 5 years old, you shouldn't say that, you should say this. And he says, okay. You say that to somebody learning English, ale nie ma sensu. This can often be the case. You have to make mistakes in order to learn. It doesn't matter if you're talented or not. It's all about accepting that. So, the first time this book was published, it looked like this. This was the original one. It came out in 2010 from Poltext in Warsaw. And the point of the book was to focus on spoken English. And the most typical mistakes that Poles make, and this was based on a 5-year observation in the classroom. Every time there was a lesson between the levels of B1 and C1 of the CEFR scale, I wrote down every single mistake. And then I kind of whittled them down to the most commonly occurring. So it was done based on what people actually said. Now I've got these things here. Why do people make mistakes? And I've missed out one very important thing that I'll mention in a moment. But if we look at it, the first thing is kauka językowe, or carbon copy. You copy exactly from Polish into English, like you have right. I don't know what does it mean, and so on and so on. That's the most logical reason. Then you've got false friends, which are, obviously, we know what they are, like far and so on. A lack of cultural knowledge. So, if you were to say that's not my cup of tea, but you don't realize that tea drinking is an important thing, so we have idioms connected to it. Then you've got poor grammar. I think that's something that you simply have. You have to buy a copy of Murphy's, go through it, and work on that. And the final thing is, what do you think the final thing is? GW. Guesswork. I've really heard people who've said things like, po niemiecku socjalizmu, to niech będzie tak samo po angielsku. Niech będzie. It's pretty much the same. So these are the things. But even if you know these things, you can still make mistakes. And I think the big problem is stress. Because when you typically learn English, you might buy a book. I don't know if I'll get arrested for saying this, but like Headway. And in Headway, the first chapter of every Headway book is, hello, how do you do? And then, how do you do? How do you do? So after going through the book, you think, okay, I learned it, I can speak English. You go to London, you're walking down the street, and you always say to somebody, excuse me, I'm looking for Piccadilly Circus. And their answer is, yo, 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 do you know who I am? So then you say, how do you do? It doesn't really work. It doesn't really work. Coming back to the book, so the original book had 25 dialogues between a Polish person and a native speaker. All the dialogues were really based about life in Wrocław. Life in Wrocław, where I live, and generally life in Poland. 6 chapters, tests, bonus sections, some games, a CD with the correct version of the dialogues, and something called Żegnajcie Błędy. So you can hear the mistakes and you can improve on them. So there's the old and here's the new. So why was the new book brought out? Maybe that's a question for Pearson or a bigger publisher, because this is something that publishers generally do. They want to bring out a successful book and they want to basically keep selling it. When I was given this opportunity by my publisher, Poltext, I thought it was a good idea to change a few things and add a few additional things to make it a better purchase. So the first thing, there's some cosmetic changes. The cover, of course, now fits. If you look at this, this is a little bit like Batman, Superman, and this one is I was told it was called the Poltext Linguistic Collection. So that's kind of an upgrade. Publishing errors. Publishers don't like to admit it, but very often you spend ages writing everything, getting it perfect, checking it, telling your friend, please check it, I'll pay you, just make sure it's all right. Send it to the publisher, and then there's loads of mistakes in there. Oh, we do a book every week, so we have to be quick with this. So all of these were eradicated. Every single publishing error, typo, was taken out. Then I went through the vocabulary, the translations, to make sure they were more accurate, to get really the best possible job. And the general format was also tweaked, so that now you get this was published on the 24th of June, so this year, 2016, this is a new, fresh, better edition. The big thing that I think I was able to add to this book was the fact that I worked for Radio Ram, and in October last year I wrote a series of short lessons in part of a bigger series called, there was a summer English zone, and then there was a general English zone, typical mistakes that Poles make when they speak English. And these were recorded, and these were called the native dialogues, because throughout the time, 5 years of writing this book, I had a lot of positive feedback. Oh, it's a good book, it's very interesting, very nice. And then one person, after 5 years, said, a po co słuchać Polak mówi po angielsku? Jak chcę słuchać jak Anglik mówi po angielsku? So they were actually pointing out that the dialogues are between a Polish person and a native speaker, which in my opinion was a bit like having a language lesson. But they said, we want to hear how native speakers actually speak with each other. And I thought, okay, that's a good idea. So another 10 dialogues were added. And they're called the native dialogues, and they are connected to this radio station. They were aired in October, and people quite like listening to them. They're driving to work and they hear a few mistakes. Oh, that's quite useful. And, the next day they listen for the next part. And I chose 10 of the best of these, and they were added. And this is what it looks like. And I can tell you that the illustrations here come from none other than Beata Gutzinska. And I can tell you that Beata is definitely a woman of great integrity, because she said, let me look at the ones I did 5 years ago to make sure that they're going to be consistent with the new ones I'm writing, down to the same pen being used. Can you believe that? So everything was done really nicely. the added value of the native dialects is this kind of cultural knowledge that is difficult to grasp if you're not English, unless you've lived in England for a long time. So for example, if you speak good English, you're not making mistakes, you could make cultural mistakes. For example, give me your coat, sit down, drink, you want to drink something? For an English person, hearing that, I think, oh my God, I've gone to the wrong place. You would seriously, you'd rather hear something like, hello, can I take your coat, please? That's not being polite, that's normal. That's not like, oh, you're so polite. You said, can I take your coat? You didn't say, give me your coat. Can I take your coat? Can I offer you something to drink? This is completely normal. But very often you go to somebody's home and they're not being rude. They're like, give me your coat. Sit there. Coffee or tea? Coffee, please. And they give you a black coffee. But I wanted milk. You didn't say. How do you take it? Right? You should, black. That doesn't happen. So these cultural things are quite useful. So if you're dealing with English people, you can offend them, not because you're nasty or you're not well cultured, but because you may not realize that we are incredibly sensitive about these little issues. So that's the addition there. So just to sum everything up, if you were to get this book, Żegnajcie Błędy, which we have some over here, on sale, it's fully revised, corrected and improved. There's 35 dialogues now and not 25 as there were previously. You've got these cultural tips on language use. There's a new format, a new cover, and it's even bigger. It's 260 wonderfully printed pages. So if anybody's interested, please come over here and have a look.
Ja jeszcze coś powiem, bo ty jako autor nie zauważysz oczywistych rzeczy, tak? Każdy z tych dialogów ma też taki słownik. To jest bardzo wygodne. Nie wiem, czy pamiętacie Małgorzatę Cieśli, taką autorkę z lat 90.
Leksykalno-tematycznie.
Ja to bardzo lubiłam.
Moja matura.
Prawda? I to było wygodne, ponieważ nawet można było wziąć zerowego ucznia, posadzić go przed pierwszym tekstem, kazać mu przeczytać słownik na głos w obu językach i on rozumiał ten tekst. To jest taka starożytna w sumie metoda, ale niesamowicie skuteczna, tak? I ja wiem, że to jest different, ale... No tak, okej, dobra. No to najpierw jest słownik, a potem jest kontekst, a potem są ćwiczenia. I to jest właśnie fajne w tej książce i nie powiedziałeś, że tego można użyć, prawda? Z uczniami na lekcji. Musisz powiedzieć, jak na lekcji jeszcze. I każdy dostanie autograf, jeśli chce sobie dzisiaj kupić, jaką cenę oferujesz. Dzisiaj?
Well, I've got a very good offer because I've got a second book, this one about songs for young children in English, very interesting method. And you can buy the two of them together for 50 zlotys.
Widzę, że uczysz się od najlepszych, od Romana Ociepy, wydaje się.
No, the book is practical. I think some people have the book already. So the book is a very nice book if you want to, for example, use it in the class. Yeah, of course.
Dobra, dziękujemy bardzo Terencowi. Aha, jeszcze dwa słowa. Powiedz o tej książce I Can See It. To jest świetna.
Okay.
Słuchajcie, dwa słowa o bardzo fajnej książce, której używałam cały Boży rok w oddziale przedszkolnym. Naprawdę, bardzo fajnie się
This book actually was the best-selling book by Poltex in 2015. It was published in March. The book is now in... They were so quick to make, they're like, it's selling, let's make another version, a cheaper one for Biedronka. So there was this one which is hard cover, and then they made the soft cover.
For Biedronka.
Probably for Biedronka. The book, if you teach young children, the book is very useful because it convinces the parents. If you've ever met parents who say, it's your job to teach the children English, I don't know anything. The parents could learn songs in this book because they've got actually 7 words in a song. 7 words in a song, and from 7 words in a song upwards. The song is based on the 25 words that children first learn in English, based on a 20-year study by American professor of child psychology, Leslie Rescorla. All of those 25 words were then used in songs, and these songs were specially written. They're not like traditional songs that you would find. And the songs were written really with a focus on not just the children but the parents. Because very often when you have songs for children, the children quite like them but you don't. And what you don't realize is that the children are watching your reaction. And if it's like, and they're like, to jest dla ciebie, kochanie. Soon enough the child will say, well, if mommy doesn't want to listen to it, why should I? These songs are for mommy as well. These songs are for Jadek too. These songs are really for all generations. Fun, nice book. This book is only 20 Polish zlotys. That's about 4 and a bit euros. So it's a very good purchase if you're interested.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank you very much.